We good?
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so welcome to all of you who've joined this, our fourth Care Coordinator Forum. So I'd just like to run through some housekeeping bits, and then I'll hand over to James from Accurx, and he and the launch of its new features. I'm also just going to have a quick mention about the future sessions as well. So in terms of our housekeeping, if you can introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know which surgery or PCN you're from. And if you want to keep yourselves on mute, but we will give you the opportunity to ask questions in the chat, and we'll address those as we go along. So the session is recorded and it'll be shared with you. And if you can kindly participate in the Menti poll, this gives us some really useful data for future sessions. And also please know that this is a safe space and it's a support session for care coordinators. So whatever is discussed in this forum will stay in the forum. And as I mentioned, in terms of future sessions, so the future topics that have been scheduled, they're going to be subject to change. So I hope you can appreciate it's dependent on the availability of the speakers. So thank you very much. And I'm now going to hand over to James. Thank you.
Great. Lovely to meet you all. So I'm James. I'm the account manager from Accurx, covering the London region and also east of England. They work really closely with the ICB and a number of other ICBs in terms of like service delivery, keeping them up to date on new features, contracts, things like that. So today I'm just going to talk you through the Accurx product that's available to practices in Southwest London, and just talk you through and then answer any questions at the end. It will be quite an informal session in terms of the content, but to start with, I'll just run through a brief slide deck of the products that we have and then kind of move into some more of the actual demoing it. If that sounds good. So I will just share my screen now. So apologies, I won't be able to see if anybody's got any hands up unless they pop up instantaneously, but feel free to put any questions in the chat if needed, and we can come back towards them at the end. So hopefully people know a little bit about Accurx. So we're a company that really believes in putting communication in the hands of users and making the process for speaking to patients really simplified and easy, regardless of the care setting. So our primary sort of market is primary care, but we also have presence in secondary care and pharmacies as well. And we have a product that I might get to if I have the time that enables communication between those as well, but mainly you're using it for communicating with patients directly. So today I'll just run through the product lineup that's available to practices, talk through a couple of like workflow examples of how practices could use that, and then some of the training and how rollout has gone in the ICB so far, and also what practices can expect if they're signing up for a new contract for new products, and then a demo and some Q&A at the end. So we kind of have three bundles of products. So our core functionality, which most people will use us for, is something called the messaging bundle. And that involves our SMS Plus product, which is the ability to message two-way messaging between patient and practices. And then you've got Flori Plus, which is a suite of questionnaires, ability to create custom questionnaires to send the patients in terms of the QOF and just generally collecting information from patients. And then also batch messaging and appointment reminders, which at the moment are bundled together. So batch messaging is the ability to send messages to multiple patients at the same time, and then appointment reminders is automated appointment reminders, which takes the details from the EMIS appointment book and will send out pre-appointment reminders and also optionally a post-appointment reminder as well, which most practices would use for friends and family test. I'll go through all this functionality in detail as part of the demo. We also have our so all practices in Southwest London have access to that at the moment. There's also our self-book product, which is actually procured by NHS England at the moment, but is moving across to ICBs. So that enables users to send a booking link directly to a patient so that they can book in an appointment themselves at a time that's convenient for them. So this is both and on an individual level. So if you were communicating with a patient and you said, oh, can you book an appointment for next week? Here's the link. You can do that. Equally, if you were sending out multiple invites sort for smear tests or for COVID vaccinations, you can do that via batch self-book as well. And it sits quite nicely with our patient triage product, which is, and I should just say self-book is currently available to all practices in South West London as well, pending the agreement past the end of June, but I'm in conversations with the ICB team around securing that access for practices. And then we've got our online consultation and video consultation solution. So most of you will know it as patient triage. So this is our basically the form that sits on a practice website where patients can click on submit a request, whether that be an admin or a medical request. And from that, the practice can formulate a response, whether that be to redirect them to another service, to send them perhaps a Florey questionnaire or a request for a photograph or more information via our messaging products, or indeed send them a booking link so that they can come directly into the practice themselves. So that is present, I think, in around 2/3 of practices in South West London. There are other suppliers for remote consultations in particular, and then I think all but 3 practices have our video product, which is video consultation. So you can send a video link to a patient and they can have a video appointment, which is quite popular during COVID. Less used now, but still have the use case for patients who perhaps are less mobile or just feel more comfortable from having an appointment at home. So that's kind of our product suite at the moment as it stands. In a little bit more detail, so we have a toolbar that sits on the practice, well, on a user desktop. So this is for primary care users only. So this is what we call Accurx desktop. You can also access a web version of it, which is used in other care settings. So it's not pharmacy, secondary care, but most practices will be using it in this standard. So you've got a menu that will pop up when you click your initials. So in this case, it would be GP. You've also got other icons. So the next thing along is your inbox. So that will be where all your text messages and requests for online consultations will come into. Then you also have that little @ emblem, which is for our product called AccuMail, which is the communication between healthcare providers. So if you needed to message a consultant, we have like a directory of contact information for staff in secondary care, and equally they can use that to communicate with practices directly as well, to sort of circumventing the need to sit on a telephone queue at either end. The video button is for the video product, so just allows a video link to be sent to the patient that's open in EMIS or System 1, but I know practices in South West London mostly use EMIS, apart from a couple that use Vision. So yeah, so clicking that would instigate a video link to send to a patient, and then the last one would be to bring up an instant compose message with the patient that you've got open in your EMIS screen. So those are sort of the most common functions that we have. We've got really good coverage. Obviously, in the ICB, we have 100% coverage for our messaging products, and then across nationally, we have 98% of practices in the UK using us at least once a week. So it's really good take up, has been very successful. And as I said, we're looking to move into other care spaces to help improve communications there as well. So I'll breeze through these quite quickly because I think it's probably more useful to show you actually live rather than just reading bullet points. But SMS Plus, so you can use templates, you can write ad hoc messages, attach documents, and the patient can either respond optionally, so you're not going to be flooded with responses. That's an optional box to tick, and you can also all responses are saved back to the patient record as well. Florries are our questionnaires. So can be, again, these responses are coded back to record, quite often used in this management of long-term conditions, and also QoF targets as well. So with Florey Plus, which is what practices in South West London have, they can create their own flurries and add SNOMED codes as well, which I'll show you later on. We also have our own built questionnaires, which are sort of like nationally commissioned by a clinical team. So there's 33 of those. Again, they've all got the codes included in automatically, and you can, if you've got custom templates that you've used as well, you can share them with other practices, and you can send them out both individually and at batch as well. Batch messaging, so you can message multiple patients at one time, whether you want to send a direct SMS or a questionnaire, and also batch self-book links as well. These can be staggered and scheduled and coded back to the medical record as well. Templates can be used for batch as well. Appointment reminders, so set up for multiple slot types that map back to your EMIS appointment book. Patients can cancel in advance. Since there's actually a 3-day reminder as well, so by default the reminders come at 1 working day before the appointment. So if it was the appointment was at 9 o'clock on a Thursday, the patient would get a reminder at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday. If they only booked the appointment on the same day, they would get that appointment reminder immediately. There's also the option to have a 3 and a 7-day reminder as well, for appointments that are maybe booked a bit further in advance. And as I said, there's also a post-appointment reminder message feature, which is mostly used for friends and family tests. So I think the ICB has a sort of Microsoft Teams or Google Forms link that would be sent to practices to fill in. And yeah, so those we don't create the tests themselves, but we do have the software that would send out the messages with the link in. Online consultation, so practices, patients can access online consultation tools from a number of ways. So they can access through the practice website, and that's probably where the majority of the requests come from. There's also, we're also linked in with the NHS app. So if any patients have that, they will be directed through to our submission form through that. That's all fully integrated. And then lastly is our feature called reception flow, which I will show you, but it basically means it will assist with total triage. So if you've got any patients that come into the surgery or ring in and you want to triage them in the same way, there's a button in the inbox which you can press, and then you would just fill in the form on their behalf with them on the phone. It would skip some of the details, and then the request would come through into the same sort of inbox as all the others. You can assign it directly to a team if needed, but it just means that you're channeling all patient requests through our triage inbox and prioritizing where needed. Again, there's also quite a few practices in South West London using these features for a total triage approach, so triaging all requests that come into the practice. Again, so patient triage can be saved back to the record really easily. That's not necessarily the case with some other online consultation products. It's fully integrated in terms of responses with questionnaires, responding via SMS and self-book. You can reply directly to the patient rather than coming out of the product into another one. And you can also request capping to help with capacity in the team. So if you're being overwhelmed, you can either pause all requests for up to 4 days at a time, then that limit resets, or you can just put a cap on the number of requests that you want to receive each day and set opening hours for the form. And then also the option to redirect to local services as well. Video consultation was very popular product during COVID. As I said, still has lots of use cases outside of that. If patients don't want to come to the practice for whatever reason, you can have multiple people dialing into the call. So if you've got like an MDP, so you want to have the nurse on the call as well, then you could have multiple participants in that call, and also can reduce DNA. So yeah, it's still a very valid product, although the use case and we have seen, the usage has definitely dropped off in the last couple of years. And lastly, I was going to say you'll be sick of my voice, but there's still quite a way to go, is our self-book product. So this is currently funded by NHS England. and we're looking to transition that into ICB funding from the start of July. So it enables patients to book in links at a time that suits them. So this is different from having a link that sits directly on the practice website, where perhaps patients can book in and choose slots. We know that not all patients necessarily require an appointment if they can be redirected elsewhere to make best use of appointment times. And we also know that a lot of the time that patients want that choice in terms of like flexibility and to see what's available. So they can be sent a link, and again, I'll show this in the demo, through the product itself, or if you're sending out a batch self-book link to patients as well, they'll all get that availability, and it's kind of like a first come first serve basis. So if patients book in and there's no slot types available because they've already been booked by the patients, that's the case. They won't be double booked, for example. And again, like you can add codes to these that patients have been invited as well, and they can also cancel from the batch link as well. So yeah, so booking is a really exciting module, and it's probably where we're putting most of our development at the moment. So things that are coming in the pipeline that practices haven't used so far is the ability to select a clinician. So in terms of continuity of care, if the practice wants to offer the patient the option to book in with a specific GP or a specific nurse, that will be an option available to offer to the patient. So it's not by default. We don't want particular clinicians getting overwhelmed, but it will show the number of slots available with each clinician in the practice for that appointment type. So that's coming in the next couple of weeks. And then slightly further off is cross-organizational booking. So that will allow, if you're working in as perhaps like a hub or an enhanced access model, you'll be able to send booking appointments for other practices or other sites outside of your own practice code. So that will be quite a useful function as well. And then looking further off, there's things like the ability to reschedule a booking link, an appointment through the initial booking link, and also the ability to schedule one sort of months in advance. So if you're looking to like schedule regular appointments with a patient, that's all in the pipeline for the next few months. So I'll show you a couple of workflow examples, just kind of perhaps put those products into a real sense. I also need to plug in my laptop, which is embarrassing because I don't seem to have a cable. I may have to hunt one down briefly, but I'll run through these first. So for example, if a patient was coming in for a diabetes appointment, that you'd send the appointment, the questionnaire before the appointment. And then if it turned out that the patient had high blood pressure, then you can send a second sort of monitoring a BP at home flurry, and then that would result in a self-book appointment if that was deemed necessary by the clinician. Again, they could cross over time-wise as well. It's just the kind of the structure of how the products would work together. Equally, we have custom flurries. So another example here we've got is whether the patient wants to take a statin, and then you can, or is currently taking statins, and then you can save that back to the patient record using the SNOMED codes that you've recorded in the custom flurry. And then in terms of batch messaging, you could send out a batch flurry to a large group of people, maybe your COPD cohort. And again, when they come back in, they can be assigned to a shared folder. So your nursing team working that specialty can review those directly rather than them all coming back to the same person. Just before I get on to the live demo, just a little bit about our support that we've got. So we have regular webinars. This does say monthly, but I should have updated this to say they are actually quarterly now. So we run quarterly webinars on all of our products, but we also have lots of other sort of ongoing calls. So if you're ever confused or practices are ever confused about what the functionality is, they can always reach out to us to find out what kind of call would best suit them. for practices who are new to patient triage, that they receive a 30-minute one-to-one call as part of that package. So they'll get like a specific set of emails for online consultations with the option to book in a call with our team directly. We also have for practices that are looking to move to total triage, so or use sort of, modern general practice in a sort of a larger extent, they can book into one of our ambassador calls. So we've got practices from across the country who are using our tool. I think there's around 750 at the moment using this for a sort of total triage approach. And some of those have volunteered very kindly to run these sessions, so kind of group sessions for maybe 5 or 6 practices at a time, just to ask questions about how they've implemented that as well. So that's not on this page, but it is something that we brought in the last month or so. We have lots of recorded webinars, both nationally and sort of like short, kind of quick webinars that practices can use to just if they're stuck and they need advice at that one point. And then we've got our support chat as well, which yeah, the vast majority are responded to within 5 minutes. The support team always gets like 5-star reviews. They're really a great bunch. There's only actually about 6 of them, but normally people assume there's about 30 or 40 of them, but no, they are very quick to respond, and we have a great sort of structure here in terms of escalating problems, and if they're not sure on the answer, and who in the engineering and the product teams to come back to. So yeah, we've got a lot of backing behind it, which most of the practices and will hopefully be familiar with some of these. And then I've been on calls with the in the ICB as well. I don't think I've been on any borough calls yet to this extent, but there's a GPIT forum that happens on Tuesdays, and sometimes the ICB asks me to dial in, or recently we've been focusing on reducing SMS fragment spend as well, which I'll touch on as part of the demo as well. So
I'm sorry, I think we've temporarily lost James, but I'm trying to contact him, so not to worry.
I think
he
we
was
have
looking for a
Fozia
cable.
because
Yeah, I think
his battery was low.
yes, I think he was looking for a cable, wasn't he?
Yeah.
If you guys can just hang fire for just a minute or two, and I'm going to try and contact him. Thank you.
Hi, James.
hi, I'm
you
so
back.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, my battery it didn't give
Hi,
me any
James.
notice, it just cut off.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm sorry about that. We can have a strange gap in your recording.
That's okay.
So I kind of finished the presentation aspect off. There's probably a good point to pause if there was any questions before I perhaps start the demo. That sounds good. If the people got there any questions in the chat?
No,
Yeah,
there's no
as such, yeah, there's nothing in the chat at the moment.
Okay.
Thanks, James.
That's okay. Shall I move on with the demo of the product if that sounds useful?
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Great. I'm going to share my entire screen. So I've got, although my computer switched off, my email still seems to be logged in, which is good. It's unusual for emails to be on my side. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to run through this quite smoothly. So I'm in our demo environment. So I think there might be a few odd things in here, and I've got like a demo patient loaded in the background, just as a disclaimer as well. This patient is very unwell. In fact, I'm going to write down her date of birth because I will need that later as well. So yes, we have our Accurx toolbar, which is here, which can be moved like that, as I said. So you've got, if you click here, it would directly message the patient that's open in EMIS. The same would be set up a video consultation with this patient as well. This is our AccuMail product, which allows for cross-care communication. This is a directory which is actually not switched on for most practices. And then this is our inbox as well. And lastly, our the initials, which brings up the menu options like so. So I'll start off by just talking through some of the products and how they work. So we have a patient up, Michelle Power. If we were to click this button here, again, the computer just restarted, but it does seem to be behaving. This would just bring up a compose message screen, which is probably most familiar to practices and how the majority of people will be using the product. So SMS Plus is our product that's used by sort of, yeah, as I said, 98% of practices in England every week. So majority of primary care users will hopefully be familiar with this. So there is, so you've got the patient's details up here, and it's just number, date of birth, and gender. You can, this is where you would compose the message as well. In terms of SMS fragments, so I know this is a bit of a controversial topic in the ICB at the moment, because I know they've introduced a cap for each practice to use SMS fragments. So we've surfaced how many fragments are being used in the product. So as you're typing out a message, it will say here. So as we go over that that mark, you will see the number of characters and therefore fragments go up when you go into the next bracket. If you want any more information, you can also click on here. I won't focus on fragments too much today, but it is there in the product. You can here you can change the number if you want to send to a different number. You can also send to the patient's email address as well. So email does not have any fragments, but as a sort of caveat, it should be noted that although it is completely free to send emails, that it's probably worth checking that the patient is expecting to receive communications by email, just because a lot of people might not use it, and therefore you wouldn't want them to miss a message. So we'll stick to text for now, and also this flags if the patient has had a recently failed message. So being a not real number, this patient has a lot of failed messages, but you can always change that if you know for a fact that perhaps they're using a son or daughter's phone, and you have that to hand. You can just type that in here as well. Typing the body of the message, you can edit that. That's free text. We would advise going directly into sorry, go where EMIS has gone. Yeah, EMIS is closed, but that's fine. Go back to Accurx. Yeah, so you can type in the body of the message here, and then you've got your features such as allowing the patient to respond with one-to-one SMS. You can include an attachment, so whether that be a PDF or a photo or an advice from nhs.uk or something from EMIS as well. Also our booking link, apologies. Yeah, if you want to add a booking link, you can click on that, and you can click through the options there. I'll focus about that in booking a bit more detail shortly. Whether you want this to save to the patient record as well, by default this is ticked, but appreciate that some practices don't want their records being cluttered with messages. This is the kind of, we hear both sides of the argument quite a lot. So if the practice does not want to do that, they can untick that. And then lastly, they can schedule the message to send if they wanted to send now. That's fine, or the next morning, or they can choose a custom date or time. linking into that somewhat is the ability to use a template or a questionnaire to send to the patient. So this is a template that I created earlier, but you can also see in here, you've got templates created by the organization. You can search for these as well. I think there's one about coffee or tea. No, that's a questionnaire. Similarly, you can click on your questionnaires. If you've got ones that are created by yourself, they would be at the top, or they can be grouped into different categories as well. If the ones that we create are the 33 ones are split up into these categories. So you can always search for them or browse on a wider screen. But say, for example, we'll send this to the patient. I think there is one about. No, there's not. That must be somewhere else. So in this instance, we would do the carer status. So you could it will flash up whether you want to replace what's already in the draft. But this template has the questionnaire as well, but also has the sort of little intro, and you can add on top of this as well, and you'll be able to see that the fragment count has gone up because we've gone over the 160 character limit for one fragment. Also, will flash up that the relevant SNOMED code will be added to the patient record as well. So I won't send that just because this is a demo environment and there's some number somewhere getting a load of fake text. But what I can show you now is a bit more about the florries and how to create them and where they live in the product. So I'll close this message with Michelle Power down. And if we click on our initials here, we can go to manage organization. And here you get an overview of the product. So you've got patient messaging here, patient triage settings, which I don't think I have access to because I'm not an admin user on this thing, on this account. Yeah, I'm not. But an admin user would be able to change that for the organization. Appointment reminders here as well. Accurx, which is part of the booking function specifically for COVID booking. And then reporting as well in the product, which is something that we've just refreshed. And in fact, I'm not entirely sure that these links will work yet. They won't work in this demo environment, but they should be working for practices. So going back to florries and templates. So if you click on this option here, you'll be able to see your own templates. This is one, well, the only one that I've created in this demo environment. You've then got all of the templates that are used across the organization, though these are all the custom templates that my colleagues have added. And then lastly, you've got our Accurx templates as well. So these are our standard templates that we upload as part of the SMS Plus thing. So again, all of these are searchable and they can be filtered if you want to take a look. And then lastly, we've got the florries that this practice has created. So if you go click on here, it will take you through to the custom florry screen. So I'll talk you through this now, and then we'll perhaps go back and look at templates. So you've got these ones are the drafted florries. So these ones are ones that colleagues have made, or we always recommend testing a questionnaire before publishing it straight away, but you can do that as well. So we go on to create a florry questionnaire. So in this instance, I will just create one about having a cup of tea. So I'll create that. And then you can add up to 15 questions. So from there, in multiple choice, if you need a measurement, so such as height and weight, or a free text response as well. So in this case, we'll do this. Would you like that? And then they can select one answer or many answers. So in this case, I'll just stick with one answer. Click yes. Option 2 would be no. And if you want to assign a SNOMED code, you can search for them here. So I don't think there's any related to tea in this circumstance. I should probably look up to do with one of dehydration, but I'm going to leave that at the moment. If you don't see a SNOMED code that's not, if there's one that's missing, you can contact us and our support team, and once a month we kind of do an evaluation of what codes we can add into the product as well. So I'll leave this here for now. Again, you can add SNOMED codes to each of the options, and then click save. And maybe I'll add another question. Save the next. Whoops. Add a question. Add a multiple choice. What type of tea? There we go. I don't actually drink tea, but there we go. So this is a 2-question flurry. We can click save and next. So we've done with adding the questions, and then this would be the template that the patient will see, or that will be uploaded by default. It can be edited. The link to the questionnaire will always exist, but we are interested to know what you drink. And again, you can include a SNOMED code for but actually asking the question as well. So if you were wanted to check off that the patient had been answered, for example, an ACR test at home or a screening service, then you can add that code in here, and that's saved to the patient record when the flurry is sent. And then when the results come in, if you've selected SNOMED codes in the answers, then those are saved to the record then at that point. Again, shows you how many fragments that message will take. So if we click saved and next, so at the end of the flurry, so I'll show you how the flurry looks for the patient shortly. But you can also create a custom sort of end of flurry message. And what's quite useful, it's certainly for practices using patient triage, is if you've got standard sort of requests for additional information. So if you've got a patient that's coming in and they've got like a headache, or they've got one of the sort of like more common conditions, you can have these flurries on record, and you can just send them as a template without, instead of answering typing out specific questions or trying to like bit of back and forth with the patient. You can just send them a single flurry to gather the information, and then from there take the next steps. So again, I'll just save this, and you can assign the responses to a specific group within the practice. So in this case, we'll just assign it to reception list. But it just means that everybody doesn't get a notification each time that this is filled in. Again, this flags up by default. So if you want to publish it straight away, you can send it directly to patients, or if you want to save it to testing, it means you can only send it to test patients. I will just publish because I can't remember if Michelle Power is a real patient or not. But if we go back to the product, and if we click to search for templates, yeah, so that questionnaire is already in there because it's live. We click that, I will send it in this case. It will probably, again, this flashed up because the patient has declined consent for SMS, but in this case, as it's a test, we'll go ahead. Yeah, so this patient it's failed in this instance. As I said, it's a fake number, but it is saving to the record. And just to show you what the patient will see, say this was a smartphone, or that they opened it on their computer for whatever reason, it would take you through to this screen. They would be asked to fill in their date of birth to verify that it's them. And then the message appears here, so they can start the questionnaire. It expires in a week's time. For this case, that's actually my birthday, which is why I was a bit hesitant about the date. But yes, so the flurry links are valid for 7 days. And you can just follow through and submit. And then, yeah, the patient can access that link again in their sort of like their flow of their chat. And they can also see the answers that they submitted. And then in the practice inbox, we click on inbox, this should open. And so this is actually flagged because it's actually failed. But if you go into the Florries and you go into the reception inbox, it will be in here, get reception list. It's not in there at the moment, but you can see that the answers are in here. You can also optionally save that to the patient record if you want to save the response, or if you've added SNOMED codes to those answers, then they are automatically saved back. You wouldn't have to manually add them, but if you want to, if you had free text, for example, you could save that as well. So now I'll just look at the last components of the messaging product, which is the batch texting and appointment reminders. So if we click on our initials again, and you can see batch messaging has popped up as an option here. So this will just bring us back through to the web environment, but you can also access that through the sort of the main messaging page as well. But we'll do it through the initials for now. It just clicks through to batch messaging. So yeah, as part of batch messaging, as I said, you can message multiple patients at a time. So these can be in the thousands, or it can be like 3. So it's everything in between as well. Sends a batch message. It's really, really easy. The only thing to flag, as this pop-up says here, like you need to, if you're sending a big batch message via Accurx, then make sure to keep logged into the clinical system and also have your toolbar opened, just so that it's saved to the record. So it can take a bit of time for all the batch messages to send. So if you're planning to log off and leave directly at 5 and you're sending a message at 4:59, maybe just sort of do it the next morning, or just happy to stay around for a little bit later just to let them save to the record, because there needs that connection between the toolbar and EMIS to be in place. So when you click on batch messaging, you can choose one of 3 types. This is just in our demo environment, but you've got the batch self-book, as I said, or you've got a standard SMS, or you've got a Florey questionnaire as well. So in this case, we'll just send an SMS. You can select a template. So this is a template that I created, well, actually last May. So you've got that to hand. I'll show you briefly how to create a template, but that would go into there. And that's just one fragment. If you wanted to add an attachment, so for example, if it was a PDF of like how to find directions to the practice, or some advice if you were sending out a long-term conditions management thing, and you can also create templates that have an attachment as standard, and that will go to all patients, and they'll just get like a small link in the if I can send that. Yeah, so because of that, that's tipped that into 2 fragments, because there's a link to attach to view the attachment as well. But I'll remove that for now. And this template is standard. I added a SNOMED code to it. The ability to save to patient records for batch messaging is ticked by default, but appreciate this kind of message might not need to be saved to your entire population's message, in which case records, so in which case you could just untick that. And then the next stage is to add a patient list. So you need to pull a CSV file from EMIS with the patient's records on. We have guides on how to do this. For batch messaging at the moment, we need an NHS number and an email address if you'd like to send the message via email. If not, just an NHS number will be fine. What happens. So batch email is something that we've launched in the last few months, I think in February. Has been quite popular in Southwest London because it will help reduce the number of SMS fragments that are used. But again, as with normal one-to-one email, just to flag that like it doesn't necessarily reach the patients with the same level that SMS does. We know that about 96% of SMS messages are read within the first 10 minutes. I think studies have shown. With email that can be a lot longer. So it's the use case for what you're informing them of is quite important to bear in mind for email. But I will upload a CSV by clicking on this button. I think I've got one with email addresses in here, just as I've shown on other demos, and it will fetch the demographic from your EMIS system as well. So in this case, we've got 3 sort of test patients, and they have an email address on the file. They don't have a phone number, so they will all go to email. And then for this patient, they don't have a phone number or an email address, so they would be flagged as not being able to send. And you can download these lists as well if you were sending like thousands of messages out and you needed to know who to focus on. You can do that quite easily. Again, another important thing to note with batch messaging is that it doesn't automatically check for consent. So our one-to-one messaging does have that flag, as I think I showed before. Michelle Power didn't consent to SMS messaging, so it will pop up. That isn't present on the batch messaging product at the moment. So you would need to just make sure that all those patients have given consent to be contacted by SMS when you're uploading that CSV file of NHS numbers. So just something to bear in mind. So again, you can schedule and stagger a batch message. So if we were to choose to send it later this afternoon, we can do that, and we can split it across 2 working days, in which case you'd have like 1 today and 1 tomorrow, but we'll turn that off for now. And then review. You can review the message, how many patients it's going to, and what time it's being sent, and whether this is going to be saved to the record or not. And then this will be added to your queue of message types. So if you needed to cancel it for whatever reason, you can do so in the product. And also you can contact us, and we can, if messages haven't been sent yet, you can contact our support team and they can look into it if they can be cancelled. Another thing to flag with batch messaging, including the batch flurries, is at the moment they go via the NHS app in the first instance if the patient has the app downloaded and they have notifications on. So potentially if all of your patients did that and they opened it in the first 24 hours, there would be no fragment costs. So anything going via the NHS app, there are no fragments for, but it is reliant on the patient having the app, having notifications on, and opening it within the agreed time period, which has historically been 3 hours and is going up to 24 in the next couple of weeks after a successful pilot. So again, time sensitive would be probably better to send an individual message, not send a batch. Just going back briefly to templates, you can create a template in here, very similar to the Flurry creator, Flurry builder. You can name the template, you can select it or put it in a category, you can add your own category if you've got ones in the practice. Content of the template is here. Worth bearing in mind that the fragment count will also take into account there's like an allowance of about 20 or 30 characters for the patient's name, so it could be under that threshold, but just to make sure it has that in there. And again, also the outro as well is built into that that fragment count. If you want to attach a standard file type to send through to patients as a template, that's also okay. And each time that you attach that template or you use that template on a message, that will be in there as well. And again, you can have a SNOMED code. So if you're offering them a specific service, then that can be coded back to the patient record as well. And lastly, if you're sending out different types of templates. So you might want a template that's only available for individual patients, or you might want what's available for batch, or you might want one that's available for both. So you can tick these boxes. If you want the patients to able to respond, you can tick this, but that's only relevant for batch messaging. If you want a response from batch, it's probably best to use some sort of Florey questionnaire with a free text response for that. But yeah, patients aren't able to have a one-to-one exchange in batch, I guess, because of the volumes of responses that might be coming in if you're sending a message to thousands of patients. Just quickly, I'm conscious of time, to go back to appointment reminders. So these live here. So we'll go into manage reminders in the first instance. This shows us all the reminder types that we have at this practice. You can also click the sent ones and whether their delivery status is failed or not. So if you've got any patients that you want to check if they've had failed messages, you can do that in all in other dashboards as well. And then if patients have cancelled, they can cancel via the appointment reminder. Then that flags here. It shows what the appointment, when the appointment would have been when they cancelled, and the slot type as well. So going through quickly, to create a reminder, you can click on your site location. So this is all pulled from EMIS. You can choose multiple site locations as well, the slot types that are available, whether it's a face-to-face or a telephone appointment. Face-to-face currently gives a specific date and time and location, whereas telephone appointments will give a 2-hour time window. The reason for this was that a lot of practices were finding it too hard being pinned down to a specific time period. It will carry through to your appointment. Well, it will be marked in your appointment book. If it's marked at being 12:10, that's fine. But it will still give between, say, like 11 and 1 on that bracket, just to give you whoever's calling up the patient some leeway. But at the moment, we'll stick with face-to-face. You can type any other information that you might need to as well. If it was, for example, an asthma appointment reminder, you might want to remind them to bring their inhaler, or any forms that they might want to as well. And then they can cancel via that link. By default, it's 1 day before the appointment, or it can also be 3 working days and 1 week before the appointment, if that's helpful as well. And then lastly, if you want to send a friends and family test, you could add a link into this, and the patient would get that 24 hours after their appointment. So that's used quite a lot. Appointment reminders in general is probably one of the most used features in South West London. Because of that, it's quite good to make sure that they're as efficient as possible. They are 2 fragments by default, just because of the need to have all that information on there and the option to cancel a link. But making sure, like, older appointment reminders would be capped at 4, so making sure that that they're as efficient as possible is quite important. Whether you need these different types in place as well, and whether all appointment types need a friends and family test is probably another thing to watch out for. What I will say is appointment reminders is one of the 2 next things that will be adding to the NHS app. So going forward, patients will be receiving notifications via the NHS app if they have the app downloaded and notifications on. So really encourage patients to have the notifications on, and I think as they get more notifications through, it will become second nature for them. I know that there's probably only about 20% of people fall into that category of having the app and notifications on, but at the moment it's only 6% of batch messages that are being read in South West London that way. So there's definitely room to see those figures improve, and then generally for people to have notifications on as well. So I'll come out of here for now, and then we'll talk about the booking functionality as well. So if we go back to our lovely message with Michelle, so you will note that actually my EMIS has logged out. So if EMIS is not logged in or it's not on a specific patient, then you can still choose to message a different patient. You'd have to search for them, but in this instance, I'm not going to worry about logging back in, but I'll just have the conversation here in my inbox as well. So if I want to send a booking link to the patient, so say for example they've called in, they said I really want an appointment, and I said I'll follow up with a booking link, or if it's been an online request, which hopefully I'll get time to go through, but they'll come back and you can send a booking link just individually by clicking this button here. So again, these map back to your EMIS appointment slots. So it's in this instance, this is a demo environment, so this includes other organizations. So if you were sending one for another organization, this would be when that feature is live, you can do that, but we'll stick to our home organization, we'll stick to a face-to-face appointment, and then we'll choose an appointment type. And again, when this feature launches in a couple of weeks, the patient will be able to see whether the clinician name is shown when they click on the link. So bit embarrassing. Routine. There we go. Okay. Again, this is a test environment, so we don't have our appointment book set up very well. So again, you can add content to this as if you want as well. You can't actually send this by email. You can't send self-book links by emails at the moment. But we are looking at how we can do that in the future. It has to go by text, but you can increase this content. And if you were to send it or schedule it, we'll do that. And again, conscious this will flash up with a warning. And again, this is saved to the record by default. If a patient wants to book in, so we'll look at that from the patient's perspective, they'll have this on their phone. They can click on the link. They'll be asked to verify their date of birth. And then again, the appointment link expires after 7 days. They can book an appointment, and then they can choose the location, the date of the appointment. So they've got slots up to 6 weeks in advance. That's by default, that's mapped back to the appointment book. They can pick a specific time, review that, and this will just be scraping the practice's appointment book just to confirm that that appointment is still available. If it's not, it will flash up that the patient needs to choose another slot type, and then they get this link, and this would all be on their phone. If they would want to, then they can add that to their calendar on their phone. That's quite a useful way to use as an appointment reminder for the patient themselves, but also if they booked into that slot type and they have appointment reminders associated with it, and that will follow through as well. And again, going back to the conversation, it will pop up in here that the patient has booked an appointment. So that's self-book. Just quickly, if you go back to the batch self-book, go back to batch messaging, send a batch message, you can click self-book. And again, it's very similar in terms of like booking a slot type. It will show how many are available. Templates, if you want to use a template for the booking invite, any SNOMED codes that are necessary, and then you would just go through the same process in terms of adding a patient list. The last thing to go through just is our patient triage product, which, as I said, is not in all practices in South West London, but is in the majority. So from a practice perspective, they can go into their inbox, and this area called to assign will be also getting the spinning wheel of doom, which is not particularly helpful. Oh, there we go. So this will be where all the queries come onto. So perhaps if I go back into Accurx, and then so that's where the link would be. What is patient tree? Okay, yeah. So I'll create a a query, a test query to see how it works. So some of you may be familiar with this screen already. So this is when you click on the practice website and you would be taken through, it will say make a query here, or whatever the wording is, it would come through to a page like this that will say the practice information and address. They can click on what type of submission they'd like to make. Also, if they have NHS login, that kind of circumvents the step where they would need to have their information verified, but we'll continue with this for now. There's a big disclaimer here on conditions that they should go not be using the system for. It's very clear, and it's also very clear that it's not going to be seen immediately. So by default, I think most of the first pages says it will be read within 2 days, and the practice can edit that if they're expecting a shorter or longer time. I think practice using total triage is quite often able to do a same day response, or in fact replies within an hour, which is the ideal. Other practices may not be feel comfortable with promising 2 days, so can edit that accordingly. In here you can type on, again, it would be the same interface on your phone, and they can also access this from the NHS app. This would be exactly the same form. I have a bad back. They can attach a photo if they want to. They would just fill in this form. Most of the answers are mandatory. This one is optional. And then if there's a time that would be best to contact them, they can enter that as well. But it is optional, and it's also that disclaimer that the practice can't guarantee that. If you need to submit by proxy, you can do that, but we'll just submit by myself today. If you do submit by proxy, you enter your own details and your relationship to the patient, as well as their details. In this case, we'll do it for myself. I'll do it as Michelle Power. For the actual postcode, Michelle Power, I'll type in a different number, but it will flag up in the thing that it's not their number. And how would you like to be contacted? So text message or phone call. We're also looking at adding email into here as well, if patients want to contact this. If they want to use dual factor authentication, they can verify their identity. So this means when they come back through into the inbox, their request will be automatically matched to that patient. In this instance, because we haven't done that, you'll see how it comes through. You'll just have to confirm that it is for this patient, but they would get a text and they would get like a six-digit code that they would submit. So the patient gets that. Again, this is all customizable. They can give their feedback as well. This is available at ICB level, and then into the inbox should come a new medical request. This wants to load. Yes, so it doesn't say Michelle Power. As I said, she didn't verify her identity, but obviously her name was typed in there. We can search for the patient to match them manually. It will search for the birth date if the patient has entered that, and then you can confirm that that is indeed the patient. If they've done the step where they use dual factor authentication, that's a manual, that's an automatic process, and it will just come in and it will automatically say which patient it is. From here, this is where the sort of the triaging aspect comes through. So they'll come in through to a medical request inbox or an admin query inbox, and the person who is triaging the requests can do several things. So whether they want to mark it as urgent, if they think that the patient needs to be seen straight away, they can do that. If they want to assign to a colleague or a specific team, they can do that here. They can also add a note. So this note is not does not save back to the patient record, but it does. It is visible for everyone. So if you were to say like, oh, I think you need to take a look at this patient because of X, Y, Z, this would be the place to write it. Or if you are the person that's actually dealing with the response of the patient, so say it's been triaged to me by a member of the admin team, I could come back and reply to the patient directly. So whether that be to send a booking link because they want them to come straight in, whether it to be to send a Florey questionnaire or a standard message template, that's all those same things are available in here. So you can get some additional information from them by allowing them to respond to the query, and also you can attach documents as well. So in terms of this, I'll do this, so I'll show you how patients can respond. This is about back pain. Where is your back for? So again, optional to save to record. In this case, we'll do that. And I should have said that this has gone back to the patient's default number, but you can see in the submission that they've used a different phone number. So that would again be another flag that the patient has used a different phone number. When they get that message on their phone, it's not like responding to a text directly. They wouldn't just be pressing reply. They would again go through and enter their details and date of birth, and then they would be able to see the response that they had, and then the question that the practice has asked, and then you can either attach photos or you can just say give a response and press send. That happens like in a web environment rather than responding back to text, and it does sort of again flag that this won't necessarily be reviewed immediately. And then going back to that inbox, the patient response comes into here, and that could be saved to record as well if needed. So you've got your medical and admin patient triage inboxes here, Florey inboxes here for specific Florey answers, different team inboxes here. So by default, we get like a standard list of teams. If you ever want, or if practices ever want an additional team created, you'd have to go through our support channel, but they will action that really quickly for you. And you can turn off notifications for some of these inboxes if you want. If you do that, then your notifications will drop off. So if you're not in the nursing team, you don't want to have notifications on, it's very easy just to turn off. In some of these other boxes, you can click on all messages, so you can see all patient triage and patient responses, and also failed messages if you're keeping track of who might not have a valid number. You can also use, down here is our reception flow option. So as I said, if you've got a patient that rings into the practice or comes in and you still want to use that total triage approach, you could click here. You'd have the patient open in EMIS, and then their details are already automatically filled in. So same patients come in, same disclaimers, you could read these out to the patient, fill these in, and then they would go directly back into these inboxes to assign either reception, either medical or admin, or if you knew for a fact that it's the nursing team that needs to see this patient, you can assign a request directly from reception flow and specific to a team as well. Then also in terms of patient triage, we have quite a lot of reporting in the product as well. So as I said, there's the settings where you can mess around with. I don't have that level of access on this system, but we have a lot of support articles on what can be customized and where. And again, as I said, it has to be an admin person, but there's a lot of customization that practices can do here. We also have a dashboard in our reporting. I'm not sure whether this will work because this is a demo environment, but yes, so these ones pull directly from our Power BI, which practices will have access to, but in this demo environment we do not. However, you can this reporting was existed until recently. You can break down who has been assigned each request, demand over each day, and you can split this out by medical and admin, and who submitted it, and then the outcome as well. So once the request is done, so we'll click done here, and there'll be an option at the end to sort of for what outcome it is. So this isn't necessarily like this isn't compulsory, but we can just say that we signposted the patient to information about bad back had we done that. And again, you can save that to the patient record as well, as that was the outcome. But if you don't want to save to record, that's fine, and then you can always reopen as well and edit the outcome. So that's all within the product as well. I'm aware we're at 1:15 now, so I'll stop sharing my screen and give us some time for questions if anybody has any.
No, James, thank you. I mean, that was an excellent refresher on the use of the functions of Accurx, and obviously we're looking forward to seeing the launch of the new features as well. But yeah, at the moment we don't have any questions, but I'm happy to kind of give it a minute or two, because that was obviously a lot to take in.
Yeah, sorry, it was quite comprehensive. So if there's any like specifics, as I said, we have lots of support articles and flash demo videos that
no, of course. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. So when are your new features actually being launched then? Is it going to be sometime next month, or is it at the end of this month?
Yeah, so the reporting is being rolled out gradually to practices. So some practices might have it already. So if you want to see like a deeper dive on fragments, on the patient triage, the things that weren't loading for me, which was perfect, and also the questionnaire responses. So they should be live with some practices now, and certainly by the end of the month, they should be with everyone. The specific clinician choice in self-book, so that is something that again is launching within the next couple of weeks, so before the end of May. Cross-organizational booking currently looks like, I will say, summer. It has been piloted. We've hit some roadblocks because of EMIS settings in the pilots that we've been doing, but it is very much underway. As you can see, it's already built into the demo environment that we have, and then that will enable sort of hub working quite a lot. What else? So quite exciting in terms of NHS app integration. So batch self-book and appointment reminders will be available from June. I think we're aiming to actually include batch self-book for South West London as one of the first 2 ICBs in the country to get access to that, just because we know that fragments is a big pressure for you guys. So that should be hoping from sort of mid-June, and then late June for the national rollout of that, and also for the national rollout of appointment reminders, which is a little bit more complex. I don't pretend to have the knowledge of how it all works, but batch self-book is apparently a bit easier to do, which is why that can be released a couple of weeks earlier.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, just out of interest then, so I think there's a certain shift then, isn't there? So in terms of, as opposed to increasing number of fragments for us to actually send messages, it's going to be more promoting the NHS app to go through that way. Is that correct? Is that to save on the monies, obviously?
Yeah, so my understanding in South West London is that the ICB has given an allocation to each practice for this current financial year. So you're not the only ICB to have that. The other ICBs in London have also actioned that, just to offer some reassurance. So each month we'll be producing a report of the usage of each practice that we will share with the ICB, and that will be cascaded down to borough leads. So you'll be able to keep an eye on how many fragments you're using per patient, or like where you are against that. I guess, yeah, the shift kind of is, we're hoping to see as more messages go via the NHS app, that will become less of a pressure. I think also worth bearing in mind is that the campaigns the ICB asks you to send out. So I know last year there was quite a lot of campaigns around hot weather, and there was Christmas, there was sort of like out of hours access. Those are funded by the ICB separate to that allocation. So if you see your usage for last year on your product and you think, God, that looks a lot higher than what the normal usage was that the ICB's given me, that's for that reason. So I think there was a practice, can't remember which borough it was in. I think it was in Richmond rather than Merton or Wandsworth. And although it looked like they were 100,000 over, actually the reality was it would have made a difference of about £200 a year. So again, I'm not sort of in the detail around that, but although it might sound like I am. But yeah, so the shift is to kind of reducing unnecessary fragment spend. That's why we've introduced the email function, while we're putting more message types through the app. And it is definitely something that we're continuing to develop, with the goal being one-to-one messaging through the app as well at some point. Just need to make sure that's clinically safe, and also increasing the usage of the NHS app, because if it's only going to 6% of people, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. But it's a bit chicken and egg.
No, brilliant. Thank you so very much. I think we're going to have to leave it there, but I mean, I can see this is going to be a new second session that we might have to bring you back in on. So thank you so very much for today. But if I can just request for everybody else to hang fire so that we can participate in the Menti poll, that would be amazing. Thank you so very much, James. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome. Apologies for kind of like droning on at you for a whole hour, but hopefully it was useful to some extent.
No, it was brilliant. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Take
Lovely
care
to meet
now.
you all. Enjoy the rest
Thank
of your day.
you. Thanks, you too. Bye. Bye-bye. Nisha, are you happy just to share the Menti poll? Is that all right? Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Oops, I've skipped a question. Okay. There you go. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. Thank you. Okay. Is everyone just can we just join in to the Menti, please, using the code? I think it's menti.com. And the code is 66371052. Thank you. Sorry, we might have to just kind of rush through this a little bit. Obviously, we've got 10 minutes left and conscious of the time, and that obviously you're needing to get back, but are we good? All right, brilliant. Hopefully you found today's session useful, but it's obviously always good to know from yourselves.
Rosie, we've only got one person on.
I know.
2 people on Menti. So
Okay.
if you are unable, 3 people on Menti, that's good. If you're unable to join Menti, you can just pop your
put in the chat. That's not a problem. Okay, I think we've got 4 people on Menti now. Like I said, yeah, please do answer in the chat if that's something that you want to do.
The 2 people that's answered no to this question, it would be really good to understand why. Please feel free to email me and Fozia. It's just, you know, nothing's going to be held against you. It's just that we know then for future sessions, you know, what to put on and what not to put on. And thank you for being so honest.
Yeah. So just how many you've managed to attend in terms of the forums? So we've had 4 so far. Thank you, Josephine. I appreciate that you found it helpful. Okay, so we've had 2 people attend the 1 session, assuming that was today's then. We've actually had 4 in total. So this is going to be quite a useful question then, in terms of what's prevented you from attending these sessions in the past. Okay, thank you. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you didn't know the forum existed. Okay, so we've actually got a mailing list, haven't we, Nisha, in terms of who we're sending it out to. So if you've only heard of this by word of mouth, if you want to just send your details through to us, we're happy to add you onto the mailing list.
Fozia, I actually was looking at registrations compared to my mailing list, and I have added all the new people.
Okay.
So
Right,
in future,
brilliant.
you will receive our comms.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Elise, thank you very much. So do you feel these forums have supported you in your role as a care coordinator? Thank you to the 2 people that have answered. I appreciate that. And we've got Josephine who said yes as well. So thank you very much. Oh, I see. Okay. Interesting. Again,
If
for
you
those that
guys
have said,
have,
yeah. Again, for those that have said no, it'd really be useful to know why that is.
yeah, and if you've got any topic ideas as well that
Yeah.
you'd like to hear about.
Hopefully that will come up. Yeah. So how can we actually improve these sessions moving forward then? So for those that have answered no, it'd be really helpful to know how to improve the sessions.
The responses are anonymous, guys, so
Yeah.
we'll never know who you are and what you've answered. So please feel free to pour your heart out.
If not on the Menti, then please do answer in the chat. That's not a problem. Okay, so in terms of we don't seem to have any improvements suggested yet, so that's fine. We can just move on. That's not a problem. And so this is going to be quite helpful as well for future sessions. So what would you like to see covered?
Does anyone have any topic ideas that they'd like to learn about or have clarity on? It would be really helpful because, and then Fozia as the lead can go out and search for these speakers, because if we don't get any feedback, we kind of then base it on what we think you'd like to know about. So it would be really helpful if you can contribute to this as well.
I mean, in terms of the topics, so diabetes, okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's quite a big thing. I can certainly have a look into that. Appointment booking. Yep, that's fine. Are there any other suggestions? I mean, we were going to focus on some of the tools, so obviously the NHS app, EMIS, etc. But I mean, if there's anything else, please feel free to email us. If not, in this poll. And last one, I'm just interested to know if anyone's been on any training that you can recommend to the other care coordinators. Okay, so Nisha, is there anything that you can recommend in terms of from South West London?
We've got the two. Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Let me stop the recording. Actually, we've got the 2-day care coordinator forum, not care coordinator forum. The
course,
training.